Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, we got some great news for you Vikings fans on the injury front. Jalen Nailor is expected to be back, and also the Bears. They named their starting left tackle, a huge position of need for that football team, and how does that impact this Week 1 matchup? We'll discuss it on today's show, and then also some very concerning Bears injury news that I do want to touch on the tail half of today's show, but some even more good injury news for us Vikings fans. Van Ginkel. He has been dealing with a mystery injury, is what we'll call it, since August 11th. But KOC said today he is working his way back and doing really well. Now, also, another injury update here. Harrison Smith, TBD if he'll be ready to go. He's dealing with some personal issues outside of the game of football, so I'm hoping everything is okay. They don't expect this to be a long-term thing, but Van Ginkel should be ready to go. Harrison Smith, TBD, and we'll get you guys an update on Naylor here in a second. But speaking of Week 1 versus Chicago Bears, we're starting our sub battle here versus Bears now. We're starting off at 0 subs a pop, and we got the first nod here on today's show. So if you guys have not already, hit that subscribe button today. We'll be going live for the game, live during every single Wednesday during the season, injury reports, previews, whatever it may be around your favorite football team. We got you covered here at Vikings Now by Chat Sports. So hit that subscribe button today. Once you are subbed, just give me a skull down below. All right, so the great news on the Jalen Nailor front, he's supposed to be ready to go for Week 1 versus Chicago Bears. Obviously, he was dealing with that hand injury over the last couple of weeks during training camp. He did have a mild procedure done, but he is supposed to be ready to go, which is absolutely massive because we have talked about this wide receiver room at length here on the channel. And obviously, with Jordan Addison being suspended for the first 3 games, we're looking at who's going to step up. Obviously, the Vikings trading for Adam Thielen was a huge help on the wide receiver front, but we were looking at that wide receiver 3 position. Was it going to be Jalen Nailor? Was it going to be a guy, perhaps like a Ty Felton, who the Vikings took in the 3rd round, or even a Miles Price stepping up? But with Nailor out there, like I have full confidence in this wide receiver room, and I got full confidence in this big 3 here of Jefferson, Thielen, and Nailor. Like Nailor, people forget. Last season, when Addison was dealing with that ankle injury, he stepped up and he played some big-time football for this ball club. He found the end zone a couple of times. He was looking great. And then Adam Thielen, even though this man is 35 years old, he is still one of the most productive wide receivers in the league. He was huge for Bryce Young's development over the last 2 years. And just back in 2023, his first year after leaving the Vikings, the guy had over 100 receptions and over 1,000 yards. And even in 10 games last year, had over 600 yards as well. And also, fun little tidbit here, Adam Thielen, backup punt returner for Week 1. I was stunned. We just saw that before we started filming today's show. So that's a little funny that the 5'1", 40-yard dash man, Adam Thielen's going to be the backup punt returner. But speaking about the weapons here and just speaking about the Vikings offense, I really don't think there's an excuse for this side of the football to not be productive against the Chicago Bears during Week 1, even without Jordan Addison. Now, obviously, Addison, I think, takes this offense to another level. It raises the ceiling, no doubt about it. But I still think the floor should be incredibly high. Now, I think this will come down to a couple of things. 1, can the Vikings run the football? And also 2, can you maintain some of that receiver production with Addison out of the lineup? I think with guys like Thielen, Jalen Nailor, and TJ Hawkinson working in, they should be just fine. But, there's one guy I'm thinking of offensively, and, it's a play caller. It's Kevin O'Connell. And this is going to be a huge stretch of games during the first 3 weeks of KOC. Because you aren't going to have Addison, one of the best wide receiver 2s in the league. A lot of pressure on him being able to run the football at a high level this season. We should get those answers during the first 3 weeks of the season. And as the season started to come closer, I started to think about this Vikings team as a whole. And I have honestly, I think personally, have underrated Kevin O'Connell because I was going through an experiment with a couple of my friends over the last couple of days, and we were talking about like if there was a draft of NFL head coaches, incorporating age, incorporating what they've done and what they will do, where would Kevin O'Connell go? I think he would be 3rd. I think it would be Andy Reid, Sean McVay, undisputed 1 and 2. But that number 3 spot is up for grabs, and I would take Kevin O'Connell. What he has done at the quarterback position for the Minnesota Vikings has been unbelievable. Career years out of Kirk, career year out of Sam Darnold. We even saw Josh Dobbs have that magical run a couple of years ago, and even Nick Mullins was playing good football. So I think with all the question marks around this football team, can J.J. McCarthy be successful? I think we should flip it on can KOC get the most out of him, and I think he will. He is one of the best play callers in the league. He is one of the most quarterback-friendly coaches in that National Football League. So I got all types of faith in KOC getting it done. But speaking about Week 1, hopefully we get the first touchdown Week 1. I'm assuming we will. But you guys let me know who scores the first touchdown of the season for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to go hometown kid. I think it's going to be first drive of the game. Adam Thielen will find the paint. So that's my answer. You guys let me know who scores the first touchdown of the season for the Vikes. Now, coming up next year on the program, I do want to talk about the Bears' offensive line and who they got starting at left tackle. Pretty good news for Jonathan Grenard, I must say. And then also some concerning Bears injury news we'll dive into here in a second. But before we do so, today's episode of Vikings Now by Chat Sports is brought to you by Prize Picks. And the football season just around the corner, but college football is here. So don't miss any of the action this season on Prize Picks. If you guys download the app today, plug in that promo code CLNS. We'll hook you guys up with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, Prize Picks, super simple to play. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Prize Picks is also the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. And speaking about week 1 of the football season, Cowboys taking on the Eagles without Micah Parsons. He's with our division rival, the Green Bay Packers. So shout out to Jerry Jones for that one. But they got a deal for you guys. 1 Dak Prescott passing yard. We get you guys 1 win on Prize Picks. It's their max discount for the week, so make sure you guys include that in all of your lineups leading up to the event. And if you guys download the Prize Picks app today and plug in that promo code CLNS, we'll get you guys $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. A massive shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's edition of Vikings Now by Chat Sports. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, shout out to my coworker here, Harrison Graham, tweeting this out, saying Braxton Jones will start at left tackle per Ben Johnson. Give Harry a follow on Twitter if you guys have not already. But I'll say this. This has been a massive talking point amongst Bears fans, Bears media, leading up to this Week 1 matchup. Will it be Trapillo, who they took in the second round? Could it be Karam Amigaji, who they took in the third round this past season? Looks like they're going to give the nod to Braxton Jones here. And there's no doubt the Bears have upgraded their offensive line from a year ago. But also, I really do believe this. It's going to take some time for this unit to gel. And why I've always thought the Vikings move on the offensive line were better than the Bears this past offseason, because you already had continuity between Ryan Kelly and Wolf Fries. They played together the past couple of years in Indianapolis. But this group for Chicago, Braxton Jones, he's solid, but also Jonathan Grenard had his way with him last year, had a sack on him, had 2 pressures and 22 pass blocking snaps this past season. And I think Grenard, he should have a monster day. He is still one of the most underrated players in the National Football League. Like in the top 100, this guy came in at 48. Is that too low? Abso-freaking-lutely. Grenard is one of those guys where he's unguardable if you leave him one-on-one. He's great at setting the edge. He had 18 TFLs this past season, 12 sacks, back-to-back years having 12-plus sacks. I think he could be sitting on a 15, 16-sack year. I don't think we've seen the prime of him. And if you go look at the reports from training camp, everybody's saying the MVP was Jonathan Grenard. Now, yes, Justin Jefferson not being there played a big impact on that, but 58 was causing havoc. And I think he and the rest of his defensive line will be the story of Week 1. I don't think it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. I don't even think it's going to be Kevin O'Connell. I think it's going to be that front 4 for this football team getting it done, and it starts with Grenard. Maybe we'll get a Dallas Turner sighting. Maybe Hargrave and Allen. Maybe they'll get a sack apiece there. And I just think when it's all said and done, we're talking about this game late Monday night. Why did the Vikings win? It was because of that defensive line. But it could also be maybe Justin Jefferson just has a hell of a day, because this injury news coming in from Courtney Cronin here saying that Jaylon Johnson had a pretty bad groin injury that cost him off training camp, which he called a freak accident that occurred when training this offseason while working on releases with receivers. This is massive injury news for the Chicago Bears. He's one of the better corners in the National Football League. Now, nobody can guard Justin Jefferson one-on-one, but he gives him a better chance than Tyreek Stevenson, for example. And this is what Jaylon Johnson actually had to say on his injury, saying, I like to say I can go out there and play, but I mean, it's definitely hard to. I feel like if we had a game today, it wouldn't be a thing. But I think really this week will be important for me to get the pads back on, get practices under my belt, game speed, moving around, covering guys, communicating. I think that will all help me. But again, there's not too much you can replicate in the game. And if Jaylon Johnson's not able to go, I can't understand how big of a loss this would be for Chicago, because, their defense, major question marks in the secondary. Do you love their safety position? Not really. Do you love their corners outside of Jaylon Johnson? Not really. Not really. Kyler Gordon, hell of a nickel corner. Hell of a slot guy you can have in the league. But besides Jaylon Johnson, who the hell do they have? Like, are you trusting Tyreek Stevenson to go one-on-one with Justin Jefferson? Come on. And even if Tyreek's got one-on-one with Adam Thielen, I still love Adam Thielen, even at the good old age of 35 years old, to win that matchup. But there's always one guy that I think I've been sleeping on, Vikings fans have been sleeping on, and it's the tight end TJ Hawkinson. I was super critical of this guy this past year. I thought a lot of the normal 50-50 balls that would always head his way this past season, they didn't. Now, I think the biggest reason of that was he was just coming off a major knee injury. He was coming off a torn ACL. But this guy has looked ridiculous during training camp. And we talk about, the Vikings injuries and, how that could affect the passing game. Well, when you have TJ Hawkinson, when you have Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Jalen Nailor, that four-man group is still one of the better ones in the NFL. So even for us being Vikings fans, we're used to having Addison, Jefferson, Hawk all out there. Even without Addison, this receiving group is still top tier. And I think Hawk, the guy went for 117 in Chicago last year. I'm not saying he's going to replicate it, but would I be shocked? Absolutely not. So I think Hawk can be second in receiving yards for the Vikings on Monday, but maybe you guys think Hawk will be number one or Thielen will be number one and Jefferson will be number two. You guys let me know. Who is second in receiving yards for the Vikings on Monday night? I can't wait for this game, man. I'm going to have trouble sleeping. I might have to OD on melatonin before I go to bed Sunday night, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So you guys let me know your thoughts down below. Who is second in receiving yards for that one? And we'll see you guys next time. As always, Skol Vikes.